Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the podcast. I'm Angela, and I am thrilled to have with me today Alexa Darrin. And Alexa is a spiritual coach, a spiritual healer, psychic medium, and channel. And through work with other spiritual healers, teachers, and mentors, she has healed and transformed her life into one of service. When her sister tragically passed in 2023, her mission felt even more urgent. Her mission is to help others expand their vision of what is possible in their life and then step into that life with soul led confidence and activated intuition. In her coaching program, she guides clients to heal deep seated wounds, connect with their divine guidance, and rediscover who they are in the soul level while integrating mind, body, and spirit. And she also offers life path sessions where she connects her clients to their guardian angels, spirit guides, as well as their Akashic record readings. So thank you for being here. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. And before you started doing all of this work, what I read was that you directed and produced documentaries for one of the largest video game companies in the world, which is amazing. And then you worked at an ad agency in LA as a creative director for 6 years before leaving to focus on all of this. Mm-hmm. So, how do you go from that to where you are now? That's what I want to know.
Yeah, following breadcrumbs.
Yeah.
Really. My whole, I think, journey, through my purpose and my career has been a winding one. I was the type of kid and person who loved school and loved lots of different things and never knew exactly what the one thing was that I wanted to do. And so, I went to law school for a semester and then left to be a high school teacher and then got into writing. And I think I've always been on this path of trying to discover who I am. Mm-hmm. And the creative career was one that sort of evolved and was one that, my heart was very much in. And it was cool because I just got presented with lots of opportunities and kind of did lots of things that I never thought I would have, done, like traveling the world to direct documentaries about gamers. And, when I was at the ad agency, I tell people I like accidentally had a Reiki session, but my mom had, told me to book a session with this. It was pitched to me as she did Reiki, and had connected to my grandfather. My mom had got a session, and I wasn't really tapped into spirituality. I'd heard my mom talk about it, but it was never something that I had, really gotten curious about. And I was like, sure, I'll do the session. I was curious for certain reasons. And then that one session changed my life. Like, I was Googling what Reiki was like after the session, and it was more than Reiki. She was very psychic, was, clearing spirits from my house and talking to my soul. And it was wild. And a friend of mine that had passed, she brought in, and I got out of that phone call, that session, and I was just crying for like 2 hours. Like I knew that there was so much more to my life and to the universe than I had previously known. And it was just really overwhelming, but it was also feeling like I was reconnecting with something really important. And so that began a process of just following breadcrumbs. Like I continued to see her on a sort of regular basis over the next year, getting different, healing, and starting to get curious about, who I was on the soul level and spirituality. But in the beginning of the journey, I didn't know that, I could connect with spirit, or that this was something that was going to become my full-time path, right? I was just getting curious. And so it was over several years process of unfolding.
Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing, when you look back at your life, what you were doing. I think a lot of people I have on this podcast, sometimes if you look at that reflection, you just can't believe, that those breadcrumbs led you to where you are now, which is amazing. And who knows what's ahead, right? So
Yeah.
it's a very exciting journey. Now you lost your sister in 2023, not that long ago. And so how did that change your mission, or how did it enhance it? Maybe I'm not sure what the word is.
Yeah, before she passed, I had been diving into the Akashic records and working on my spiritual development. I hadn't yet dove into media. And around the time of her passing, I don't even remember how I somehow got, on some email list or something about mediumship and became aware of that. But it was sort of, I lost her. I was already getting dissatisfied with my career, and feeling a little bit lost, and knowing that I wanted to shift things. And then just felt called to deepen my connection with spirit, to be able to connect with her,
Mhm.
and to do something that was more meaningful, I think, with my life. And I think that for me, my process of healing, which I'm still in,
Mm,
healing from grief is I think a lifelong process. I think for me, being able to dive into that and have that connection to spirit has what's kept me like afloat. Like
mm,
it's kept me from drowning, right? Because my daily connection and interaction with spirit and being connected to all of that is a constant reminder of, I think, the bigger picture, where
right.
I very easily could have just gone in the other direction and gone into a deep hole.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think it was that it was, I think, it was healing for me to dive into that and strengthen that connection and develop my mediumship, and then to think about what to do next with all of this.
Hmm. Yeah. And so sorry for your loss. And it sounds like it was really tragic. So um, sometimes that's tough to take. It's a different type of grief
Yeah.
um, when that happens. So yeah, and like you say, you're on the journey, and I know that the spirituality really does help, and yet we are human, and so we still have to go through that process. So yeah, so tell me more about what you're doing to move yourself through this process. What's helping you?
I think, honestly, being in service to clients, because that's what really lights me up. And so it's a way to use my gifts and the challenges that I've been through and what I have learned to show up for my clients, and really to integrate everything that I've been through, because all the pieces of my journey, from being a teacher in the inner city in LA to being a creative director at an advertising agency, all these things that I've done, it all informs my coaching. It's all a piece of that. And that's what I work with my clients on as well, is like, how can you look back at your life and the challenges that you've been through and the things that you've learned and the different maybe careers that you've had, and how does that all build to your current purpose, because your purpose is always evolving. And so I think for me, it being in service to clients and getting, I think, learning about, helping them to learn about themselves, who they are on the soul level, and seeing their journey and how that compares to other souls and their kind of unique expression, and how we're all, I think, beautifully different. I think it's, for me, it's really healing and inspiring, because it gives me, I think, hope for the future, and it gives me a greater understanding of all the challenges that I've been through.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I really like that. And um, tell me more about, the clients that you work with. Like I obviously grief. There's going to be some of that, but um, what are the people that you work with, and then maybe tell me some success stories that maybe you have.
Yeah, and I actually don't work with like grief primarily. So with my mediumship is not really a part of, the core of my work,
Okay.
because my mission is to connect people with who they are on the soul level, like connect them with their soul purpose,
Mm,
right? And to then take that purpose and to turn it either into a business or a new career or a new kind of expression, or to, take the existing business and make it more soul aligned.
right.
And so because of that, I primarily am using the Akashic records and their soul blueprint and their manifesting blueprint, sort of who they are, and connecting them to their intuition and their team, their guardian angel or angels and their spirit guides. And so that's why mediumship ended up not being really a part of that, right? Because
Yeah.
your grandma has to say about that. I mean, it's cute and it's nice to connect with her, but we're getting into like who you are, as a soul. And so
Hmm.
that's how I use my gifts. And so, of course, everyone goes through grief on certain levels. And I think I have, experience with kind of moving through that, but that sort of becomes a part of some of the healing that we do, or it's just maybe a part of the work, but
Right.
not the focus. So my clients are primarily people who are feeling a little bit unfulfilled. They're feeling like they're in maybe a career that's not quite aligned anymore, or they're just feeling stuck. They're feeling like something needs to change. That and a part of that usually is like boundaries. That seems to be a theme that comes up as boundaries, but people that really are feeling disconnected from themselves, having a hard time deciding or seeing the clear path forward to get more connected and aligned, right?
Mm.
And so that's why we work with kind of connecting them with their soul blueprint, getting to know who they are on the soul level, clearing out, energetic clutter and programming from childhood and wounds they've picked up from past lives and from this life in childhood or wherever it may have been, limiting beliefs, clearing all that out. They can get really strongly connected to their intuition and then create a really clear vision for their future. And so in my 3-month coaching program, we do all of that, and then we walk through their my soul purpose clarity formula, which is sort of how you can think about what your soul purpose is and then how that can express practically in the world, and creating an action plan for how then you can implement everything that you've learned, now being more healed and connected to your divine guidance. So my clients usually come in feeling really confused and overwhelmed and not knowing what to do and feeling all over the place. And they come out feeling like they've got a lot of clarity, super connected to their intuition, and feeling really empowered to move forward with their goals.
Beautiful. Yeah. Yeah. And you said it's a 3-month program and you work one-on-one or
Yeah, I do. Yeah. So I primarily, and that's sort of the primary way that I work with clients is in that program, Soul Purpose Alchemy. But for people who are really just looking they want to deep dive really quick and they want to mostly focus on the Akashic records, who they are and their manifesting blueprint, then I do like a 1-day deep dive, the VIP day type thing where we do a really big deep dive into connecting them with their soul and then healing a lot of past life stuff and then connecting them with an action plan to move forward to manifest the life that they've been wanting to manifest, they've been wanting to call in, but they've been kind of stuck and not really knowing how to get there.
yeah. Tell me more about the Akashic records and how digging into those can help people find their purpose.
Yeah. So, there's lots of different Akashic record readings, and I think everyone's got their own style. But for me, I really look at as your soul blueprint, which is kind of like your personality and strengths on the soul level that doesn't change from lifetime to lifetime. And so that, and I do offer this as just a one-off session, but the way that I go into the Akashic records is with a very clear sort of agenda. Like I'm not going in just to see sort of what comes and what happened in this past life. It's like I'm going in to find out, what's where your soul is from, what your soul level gifts are and strengths are, what your intuitive gifts, the sort of archetypes of your soul, your current life lessons, because that also illuminates the types of challenges that your soul has chosen for this lifetime, and getting a really clear picture of that. And that's like like a 25-page document that my clients get with all this information that we go through and then use as a foundation for our work together to understand them on the soul level. So that's how I love to use it. And then again, your manifesting blueprint is also how your soul is uniquely designed to manifest your reality. And so I look at that as well so that they can learn how to take action aligned to your manifesting blueprint and who you are on the soul level to manifest life of your dreams.
Wow. It sounds amazing. It really does. And I wonder, people who have moved through grief often find themselves um, with a loss of identity because the separation causes that. I know for myself, losing Blaine, I was no longer a wife. I had retired from my position. I no longer lived in the same community. I was very confused about what I was supposed to do or who I was supposed to be now. Um, and so I can see this being really helpful in giving people direction. Once they're through that initial shock of the grief and getting through some of that healing, I could see people really looking to you for guidance and support moving forward. um yeah, I really like that.
Yeah, I think it's really important because I firmly believe that once you know who you are, you can have whatever you want. But if you don't know who you are, it's going to be really tough to get there.
Yeah. Yeah, and if you don't know who you are or you're not paying attention, it's really hard to do that whole self-care piece because
Yeah,
you don't know what you need. You don't even know what you want. You're just,
absolutely.
yeah, yeah.
And you'd think it would be easier to know who you are, you see, be authentic, be your authentic self and be,
Mhm.
but that's easier said than done because there's so much that happens in life and in childhood and societal conditioning and baggage, even from past lives, that we have all this stuff a lot of times in our energy field and in our minds that's not even ours. And so that's why it can be really difficult for some people to remember who they are, to be connected with who they are because of all that stuff. So if you can clear all that out, which is and that was a big part of why I created the program the way that I did my program is because it just seems like it's so important to know who you are, but there's all these things getting in the way that people aren't even aware of. So you got to address that first. And I think that a lot of coaching is really future facing. And it's like, okay, let's set these goals. What do you want to do? Where do you want to go? And it's like future, future. But if you don't address what happened to you in the past and heal some of those things, then you might be setting goals that are not even aligned to who you are and what you really want. It's just what you think that you want.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, and there can be a lot of fear around, things that have
Oh,
happened
yeah.
in the past. There was a lot of fear for me stepping into this podcast and blogging and all of that stuff because I think as I was
Yeah.
younger, I maybe would have met with some criticism here and there and wherever, and it stuck with me. And so there was a lot of fear stepping into this, and I was lucky enough to have some support and some help through that. But on my own, I don't know how well that would have went.
Yeah, and that's another really common theme with my clients is the fear. And and especially after, expanding into something. One of my most recent clients, when she came to me, she had just started renting an art studio. She's like a graphic designer and did art on the side. And she finally decided I'm gonna rent this art studio, a space there, and I'm gonna really, do this for me. And as soon as she rented it, she just got like creatively blocked, like the fear of like, what if I'm not an artist? What if I can't do this? And she couldn't even bring herself to go to the art studio. So that was a big part of our work together, was was kind of getting at where is this fear coming from and
Mhm.
healing through that so that she could just go to her studio and do the thing that made her the happiest, right?
Right.
Because we the inner critic can be so crippling.
Oh, yes. Huge. And we do, I find this with a lot of people, and I know it happened with myself. There was a lot of self criticism that was going on from the mind that I didn't even know was happening. I
Yeah.
was saying some pretty awful things to myself in my head. And really holding myself back. Um, so, yeah, I can see where, stepping into some coaching with you could help bring some light to that because
Yeah.
sometimes we don't even know what it is that's blocking us, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Tough part.
So tell me a little bit more about, how people can get a hold of you, how they can work with you.
Yeah, super easy. AlexaDarrin.com. I'm on
Nice.
Instagram at Alexa Darrin.
Okay. And we'll make sure we have that link
Yeah.
underneath so that people can find you easily. Now, what else? Is there anything else that you want to add before we go? Anything, any advice, anything we missed?
I mean, there's so much we could say, but
Yeah.
nothing that comes to mind.
Yeah. Well, it's just absolutely been a delight to connect with you. And I'm encouraging people to go to your website and check out all the resources that you have and to make sure that, if you're thinking about stepping on a path and trying something, maybe a little coaching would help you out. And this seems like the right person. If she resonates with you, then make sure you take that step.
Yeah, and I think, having that help from someone else is really helpful. Like I had this realization a couple weeks ago because I've always considered myself like a very much like a DIY person.
Mhm.
You know, I where I started teaching, high school without having gotten a degree in education. I got a job in advertising without having an advertising book. I directed documentaries without going to film school. All this stuff, right? So I've
Mhm.
always I'm so self-taught. But I was looking back and I've always had amazing mentors. And I've definitely had mentors for mediumship and coaching and connecting to spirit. But I've always had people on my journey that have helped me in really meaningful ways. And so I think you can't really discount the value of having the right guide or mentor for you. So whether it's me or someone else, I think if you're feeling stuck, and like you don't really know how to move forward, it could be as simple as connecting with the right guide or mentor just to unlock that next step for you. And that it's not doesn't mean that you're weak or that you're, any less than for needing help. That's just a part of our journey. Like we're all here to help each other in different ways. And so if you can find someone who's a couple steps ahead of you, they can really save you a lot of time and a lot of headache and a lot of spinning if you're really trying to kind of get over that next hump.
Yeah, absolutely. And I certainly have found on my path, whenever I've gotten stuck and not sure where to go, if I just look, that person is there. Some,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So it's good to reach out and certainly go with your gut instinct on what resonates with you and what might be the path. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thanks again for doing this. And I want to thank everybody for watching and bye for now.